Something is really wrong with my wife, and we're stuck on a cruise ship for the next 14 days. My wife Kimmy and I departed on our cruise 2 days ago. We've been looking forward to this cruise for the last 5 months. We wanted to have our annual eating out competition, which was basically a race to see who can eat out the most people during one trip. Anyways, as the days dwindled down, we could hardly contain our excitement. Over the last 4 days, we flew to Australia and boarded our cruise ship, excited for our 16-day vacation, one we each sorely needed. Our ship took off with no problems. We got situated in our room, went swimming, ate at one of the many restaurants here, and swam in an amazing infinite pool. We ended the night with a glass of champagne on the upper balcony of the cruise ship. It was truly amazing. We went to bed, and Kimmy fell fast asleep, much to my dismay. I browsed the internet on my phone for a little while before passing out myself. At about 2 a.m., I woke up and noticed my wife wasn't next to me. I assumed she was using the bathroom, so I turned over. My eyes were still closed once I faced the other way, and I would have never noticed she was there if I wouldn't have felt her breath on my face. I opened my eyes, and she was kneeling down on my side of the bed, breathing heavily, with her eyes as wide as she could get them. Her hair was stringy and her face was damp from sweat, even through our air-conditioned room. It was absolutely horrifying. I jumped backwards across the bed and almost fell off the other side. "Kimmy?" I asked. She just stayed in her kneeling position and panted, with her eyes fixed on me. I said her name once more, and she began breathing slower. I sat there in horror as she stood up, walked around to the side of the bed that I was now on, and began to crawl in as I slid back over to my side. She let out a weak "get back to your side" and laid down. Then, she fell asleep like nothing had happened. I laid there for the rest of the night with more anxiety than I've ever felt before. My heart was practically beating out of my chest, and I had cold sweats for hours. I felt immense relief when the sun came up. When she woke up, I asked Kimmy about what had happened during the night. She didn't remember anything. She said she remembers getting up to go to the bathroom, then moving me over because I had rolled to her side of the bed when she went. I told her it really freaked me out, but she insisted I had just had a weird, bad dream. I knew the truth. Kimmy was complaining of a headache, so we decided to order breakfast in instead of going to the buffet. Kimmy got a huge meal. It's unbelievable how much that girl can eat without gaining an ounce. She got 4 pancakes, 2 scrambled eggs, 3 strips of bacon, 3 sausage links, and an order of hash browns. I got what they call a sausage scrambler. The food took a little while to get there, all the while Kimmy mentioning how she didn't feel good, and hoped that eating would help her ailments. Our food was delivered to our room, and we sat down to eat. Kimmy took the lid off of her tray and slid back in her chair with a look of disgust on her face. I asked what was wrong, and she said, "You're kidding, right? You don't smell that?" I told her I didn't smell anything besides our food. She looked at her tray with a grimace, and broke off a small piece of bacon. She brought it to her mouth and bit into it, and immediately spit it back out, gagging. "What?" I asked. "It fucking tastes like old, stale, raw meat, Nick." "What do you mean what?" "The food looked fine. The food smelled fine. There was literally nothing wrong with it." She refused to eat it, and made me take it out of our room. After I threw her food away, I went down to the buffet and got her a bowl of fruit, which she happily accepted and ate without objection. After eating, Kimmy decided to take a shower in preparation for the day ahead of us. While she did that, I laid on the bed and watched TV. I dozed off for a while, considering I hadn't slept much the night before, and woke up a little over an hour later. I had to triple check my phone for the time because I could still hear the shower running in the bathroom. I knocked on the door, and got no response. I was scared at this point. I had no idea what I was going to find on the other side of that door. Had she slipped and hit her head? I didn't know what to expect. I announced that I was going to enter and proceeded through the door. I didn't see her anywhere in the bathroom, so I decided she must still be in the shower itself. The curtain was closed. I inched my way towards it, with my lifelong love of horror movies telling me something was going to jump out at me any second. Nothing ever jumped. I slowly slid the curtain open to find Kimmy standing there, facing me, with her eyes as wide as they were the night before. "Kimmy, what are you doing?" I asked, halfway in a panic as I slowly backed away. It was then I noticed that the entire lower right half of her body, the part that was getting splashed with water, was red. There was no fog in the bathroom though, and no steam was coming from the shower. She had the water on as cold as it could go. "Kimmy!" I shouted. She snapped out of it instantly and yelped. "When did you get in here?" "You scared the shit out of me," she said as she turned the water off. "I scared the shit out of you? What the hell was that?" "What was what? You don't know what just happened? What are you talking about?" She insisted as she stepped out of the tub and wrapped herself in a towel. I explained what had just happened. She acted completely dumbfounded and told me that I was going crazy. She finished getting ready and we went about our day. Everything was fine until we went to one of the infinite pools. We were tucked away in our little section of the somewhat crowded pool, just talking and relaxing in the perfect water, under the hot sun. I don't remember what we were talking about, but suddenly, Kimmy stopped talking mid-sentence and became fixated on something just over my shoulder. I looked behind me and saw nothing out of the ordinary. I asked her what she was looking at, but she just kept her eyes locked on whatever she saw. I took another slow, nervous look behind me, and when I turned back, she was gone. It was only a second before I noticed she was underwater. I kind of awkwardly just stood there for a couple seconds, not sure if she was playing a joke on me or what. Then, I myself went under the water and opened my eyes. When I did, she was directly in front of my face, with her eyes, now bloodshot from the chlorine, wide open as they had been the last 2 times something weird had happened. On instinct, I moved backwards, but she stayed with me, only inches from my face. I returned to the surface and caught my breath. She didn't. I grabbed her by her shoulders and brought her up to the surface, but her body was limp, and she immediately fell back under. I grabbed her again and held her above water, saying her name over and over. People started to look towards us with concern. Then, as if nothing had happened, she came back too. She looked me in the eyes, with a normal look, and kissed me. She asked why I looked so worried, but I didn't even bother trying to explain. The rest of the day went on without incident. A couple games of shuffleboard, a stop at the jacuzzi, and dinner, and things were okay. We got back to the room, had some private time, and decided to call it a night. Around the same time as the previous night, 2 a.m., I woke up once again. This time, I was facing Kimmy as I slept, and when I opened my eyes, I found her to be laying on the bed, facing me, with her eyes wide open, with a slight smirk on her face. I whispered her name. She was breathing heavily, again, like panting. I whispered her name a little louder as I sat up on the bed. Her eyes stayed fixed on mine as I moved. I placed my hand on her head, and found her to be freezing cold. I said her name once more, this time at normal volume, and she let out a piercing shriek that, while short, surely woke the entire floor. It made me jump backwards and fall off my edge of the bed. With my back to the wall, I watched as my wife turned over onto her hands and knees, and now, with her wide eyes and a smile on her face, crawl around the surface of the bed, on no discernible path, with her huge brown eyes fixed on mine the whole time. Then, she stood up and let her head hang to the side. She stood like that, staring through me, until almost 3:30 a.m., before she calmly crawled down and went back to sleep. Comment for part 2.